This week on the Orange Box Podcast, we talk about the insane Steam Machine prices, PlayStation's leadership's confusing PC messaging, and more. All of this tonight, but first, on to the new Beautiful Bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 142. I'm your host, the man who is the Xbox Tax, Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me, as always, the man who will be sold for $1,350 without a controller, Justin, better known as I Am Zaracon. How you doing today? How's your week been?
The week's been a bit rocky here and there. Some good stuff happened, but so Thursday, I was going to work as normal, and as I was walking into the subway station, I realized I was trying to pull out my phone because I knew that I needed it for just because I have the app for my pass, and so I realized my phone's not in my pocket. So then I looked into my other pockets. I looked in my bag and I realized, no, my phone is not there. And so I realized then that I must have left it in the car I was in while I was catching a ride. And so then I'm just like, man, I do not know what to do, because trying to, contact the person is not good. I don't know if like a person who's catching it right after that person, if they're gonna see the phone and if they're going to let the person know, or if they're just gonna take it. So that was a bit of a hassle. Now I mean it's not like I couldn't contact anyone, because that was the phone I have that is just for like stuff that I can't do on my current phone, because my current one is a de-Googled phone, so I use the other one for stuff that requires like Google apps and stuff like that. So it was a bit of a hassle, so I decided to just go back home and try to see if I could contact like Uber and stuff and see like, hey, I left my phone in the ride and stuff. After a while, after putting in a request, then I got a message saying that the driver was going to look for it, and then shortly after, the driver found the phone and was going to drop it off, so that was good. So, I'm very grateful that, everything was taken care of and, didn't lose anything overall. And it was kind of good that I stayed and worked from home that day anyway, because I ended up being sick, and I still have some stuff going on, but I'm much better than I was during that day. And so I was able to just get through that day, which was already going to be hectic as it was, and whatnot there. Saturday, I wanted to try experimenting to see if I could try to get my Blu-ray drive working on my computer and stuff, and I'm still having some issues. For one thing, just for viewing Blu-ray content is a hassle, or at least just using it for the media player, because of the copyright protections that are on there. And it's like, I've tried following several different guides, and even though I've set them up 2 different ways, it still just doesn't seem to work. So that's going to be a thing unless I can figure out something else. So that's an ongoing project on that end. I'm not entirely certain or if I'm going to do anything with the MacBook, because earlier in the day, I booted it up and it seemed to work fine. I said, all right, that's cool, that's great. Later on, I will go ahead and, try knocking out the rest of the project, so that way I can pass it on to my friend. But then when I went back later on that evening, it was just a glitchy mess again. So I'm just like, yeah, this thing is probably just gone at this point, or about to be gone. So I think I'm just going to completely throw in the towel on that. And then Sunday, not really much happened there. My sister came by with the kids to see me, also because I had a Father's Day card for my brother-in-law, so I was gonna
Nice.
give that to her. But then also she said, "Hey, we'd like to see the kids." I said, "Sure," So definitely was a good time spent with them. But yeah, overall, that's pretty much it that's happened.
All right. Well, I'm glad at least you got this stuff sorted out with your phone, because that would have sucked to lose that. So I'm glad that's all taken care of. Yeah, hopefully you can figure out something with your Mac, or I don't know what else to suggest. Like I could ask my brother-in-law if he has any of his old Macs that that are like no longer being used that he wants to sell, but I think most of them he's had issue, like every time he has an issue with it, he replaces it, and I don't know if he keeps the old ones, so I'll have to ask him about that, because he only uses Macs, but he might have an old one that's not being used. So we'll see. And then hopefully, even if he does, hopefully it's actually still functional, or at least more functional than the one you're using right now. I'm sure it'll probably be newer. So who knows? On my end, not a whole lot has happened. I ended up just basically taking the entire weekend off last weekend. I didn't do much of anything. Saturday was my annual day off for Father's Day, so I basically just did nothing all day. Nothing productive, just played some games, and well, I guess I did a couple things that were productive, but it was nothing that was like I didn't do any work on videos or anything like that. It was just a couple of miscellaneous things. But I had, gotten the lawn mowed the day before, so I didn't really mess with that. But I'll probably this weekend I'll try to see if I can get the trampoline as fixed up as possible. I know we have some spare poles and stuff, so I need to see if I can get all those put on. Because I mean, it's easy to put them on. We have like spare poles, we have spare screws if we need them. It's really just a matter of taking the time to do it. I'm sure my oldest would probably be happy to help with that too, because he likes doing that hands-on stuff. So there's that. Yeah, really not much else. Basically just lots of games over the weekend, and nothing really all that exciting over the past couple days. Just, work, that sort of thing. Next Monday we have our 20-week baby appointment, so we get to see our little girl on the ultrasound and get the official word that it's a girl, even though we had the blood test, so we already know it's like a 99% chance that we're having a girl. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it on my end. I'm sure there's probably something I'm forgetting about. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, yeah, I guess there was Father's Day on Sunday, but I mean, like, we kind of more celebrated it on Saturday, just in the sense that I got the day to relax, and then and then my wife made like the Father's Day dinner on Saturday, and then Sunday we just did leftovers and we all relaxed after church. So my in-laws got me a Blu-ray copy of the last Mission Impossible movie. So, and then my wife has something coming, but it was one of those where she ordered it online. I think I know what it is, but she ordered it online and it said it was coming from the US or Canada or something. And of course it was obviously coming from China. So I think it made it to the US, but it hasn't quite gotten here yet. So I'll be getting it hopefully sometime in the next week.
So does that mean you now have the complete collection of Mission Impossible?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I technically had the last movie already, but I just had it digitally. And now I have the physical version. I mean, it's not a US region disc, but it'll play in a US player. So, Yep, it's good stuff. It's a very good movie. I enjoyed the majority of the movies there. 2 was really the worst of the bunch. And it wasn't a bad movie. It just wasn't anywhere near as good as the rest of them. The rest of them were much better. So, but yeah. Anyway, what have you been playing this week?
All right. So, wait a minute. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. So, I'll just knock a couple things out that I don't have footage for. While my nephew was here, he went to play Minecraft, so we did that for a while. He decided to do things a bit differently and play on creative mode, and he wanted to make a house. He wanted to make an adoption center for pets, so he wanted to make something for cats and dogs.
Yeah.
He wanted to make an underwater base, but that didn't really turn out that well. And then right before he had to leave, he wanted to build a police department. So I mean, granted, I was really the one making most of this.
Yeah.
But he was the one who came up with the idea, so
Yeah.
I'll give him credit for that. So
Nice.
yeah, we did that for a while. Then I played a bit more of Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance. I completed Sora's story for Country of the Musketeers, and I was going to start Riku's, but then unfortunately, I forget sometimes that when you do the dives in between the worlds, you may encounter a boss, and
Oh yeah.
the problem is these bosses now have some weird gimmicks for the second phases where I don't know what they are. And also during the dives, essentially you can get only hit 3 or 4 times before you die. And that kind of happens. And it's not like I lost a lot of progress, but
Yeah.
I did some exploration for the remaining time I had with Sora before he dropped. So I lost some of that, that progress. So I was like, I'm a bit salty now, so I'm going to just put the game down. So I didn't lose too much progress, but at the same time, I decided I'll pass for the moment. Now, something that I did play most of the time was some more Castlevania Order of Ecclesia. I've made some progress in there. I've gone past several bosses. One of them being Goliath. One of them, I can't remember what the boss's name was, but she was essentially just like an ice queen. Then I fought a fish in the sand, which is the first boss fight you're seeing. And then later on, I went and found Albus, and I fought him, and he was annoying. He was annoying to face, and I feel like I died to him more than I should have. And the biggest problem with him is that his attacks are simple, but sometimes you don't know what he's going to do, and sometimes if you try to jump behind him, because that's really the safest place to be whenever he's going to do an attack, he might counter you by trying to just do a leap attack first, and that just hurts a lot. But if you stay in front of him for too long, and he does one of his special attacks where he fires a spiraling, or a couple of spiraling waves of light and darkness, that deals massive damage. And it's very hard to, figure out how to maneuver through that wave. So that really just wrecked me so many times.
Yeah.
But I did eventually manage to beat him. And unfortunately, I'm in the part of these later Castlevania games, or at least, the Igavania games, where these have bad endings.
Oh.
so I mean, at least with Dawn of Sorrow, or at least playing on PC again, I already knew what the bad ending was and how to avoid it.
Gotcha.
Now, granted, you need to trigger the bad endings to get the alternate modes, like the Julius mode, the other, I can't remember what it is, in Portrait of Ruin. And then, but Portrait of Ruin, I think I accidentally figured out what it was. And even if I didn't, it actually is very easy to figure out what you need to do to avoid getting the bad ending. But with this game, I really do not know how you're supposed to avoid the bad ending. And I don't think there's anything that's happened so far that has shown what happened. shown like, hey, here's a clue, do this or don't do this, and you'll get the bad ending. Now, granted, I feel like I know what triggers the bad ending because of what I do or the actions I take, but at the same time, there's nothing else that I can see that I'm supposed to do at this point in time. So I'm just thinking to myself, okay, what do I do? Like, because if I try, because I thought I'm gonna try to leave, maybe save and come back, but no, you cannot leave because the character says, hey, all right, now it's up to you to do this. And so I'm like, but I don't want to do it right now. Can I get him back? Give me 3 minutes and I will do it. But no, so I'm at a bit of a brick wall right now. I mean, there's one thing I've considered doing, but I am not certain if that will work or not. I would just have to see. Now, I will say, though, is I did actually, when I came to that moment, right before the bad ending, I thought, okay, let me try this or that. And I unfortunately did not realize that the things you use, or at least the special glyphs you use, they will actually drain your health. So if you try using them, it will kill you. And if you do die from that, it's just normal game over. And so I realized, oh man, I don't have to do the boss fight all over again. So I'm gonna have to see what to do with that. But I'm making progress though, so I am happy about that. I still think some of the combat, like the glyphs, I feel like you get so few of them, and they're so sort of far in between that it's hard for me to really enjoy the combat as much as the other Castlevania games, just because, you know, if you're playing Dawn of Sorrow, you can easily find other weapons, or you can go to a shop and buy, you know, certain weapons, or upgrade your weapons here and there. You have more variety, whereas with this game, you have essentially maybe one basic type of weapon, like a sword, a spear, a hammer, axe, like that, and you have a more powerful version, and that seems to be essentially it for melee, and then you just have the different spell types of glyphs. So combat wise, I really don't think I enjoy this as much as the others, but it's passable, I would say. But yeah, so I'm making progress on that end. But then for the rest of the games, these have mainly been demos, and I really just happened to see most of these over looking at the Steam Next Fest. So I said I'll give some of these games a try. The first one is Slayblade, and this one I had seen before, and essentially it's just Beyblade the video game. Not too much to say about it, and it's unfortunately a bit, I mean, so far it seems really repetitive, just the way it's set up, because, or at least through the demo, you're trying to have enough money to enter a tournament, and the game is broken up into a cycle, day and night, and time passes in between the days. So every time you do something in particular that causes time to pass, like have a battle, mow the lawn to earn money, and stuff like that, a certain amount of time will pass, and so that's essentially all you're doing. And while the combat is simple enough, and I mean, of course you can upgrade your Slayblade and have it use certain abilities and whatnot, and then occasionally the arena might change, so, you know, you might have a barrel in the center that, you know, blocks some of the arena off. You might have an incline that makes it harder to maneuver. You might have a flat surface. Those might change how the game is played, but overall it's essentially just moving around. So it's, I guess, it's definitely a difference, or I guess you could really just play an actual live Beyblade and spin tops that way in combats, and it's pretty much gonna be the same thing. So while initially I had been interested in getting this game, after playing the demo, I'm just thinking I might just pass on this one because I don't think there's going to be too much here to make it worth my while. The next game that I played, and this one really I think was the best out of the 3 that I played, is Silver Pines. And this one, unlike the other 2 that demos that I played, I had never heard of this one before until I saw it on the demo page. And it's very interesting. I mean, at first initially I saw Metroidvania and I thought, okay, you've got my attention here. But then it also looked like it had some horror aspects, and I thought, okay. I remember playing The Last Case of Benedict Fox, and that one was also a horror Metroidvania. But the problem with that game was just that it was so unoptimized, where even if you're running it on more powerful hardware, it's just constant frame stuttering and it's not even consistent frame rate. So I dropped that. But I thought, okay, maybe this one might be better, and definitely is a whole lot better to a degree. Now I will say, I played on both my Steam Deck and on PC. The Steam Deck will get you, depending on the area, either about 60 frames per second or 90 frames per second. It really just depends on where you're at. But unlike other Metroidvanias, this one is actually more, I would say, akin to playing Resident Evil. Because it's really kind of like survival horror. You have the limited ammo, the scarce health, trying to just get from point A to point B without, dying, trying to avoid enemies that you encounter, and also solve puzzles along the way. So it's definitely very interesting in that aspect. I'm really trying to figure out how to even describe this. So, I mean, you're playing as a private investigator who's trying to find someone for a client, and you're ending up in a small town right outside of a storm, and then all of these monsters start showing up. And the atmosphere really reminds me a whole lot of a combination between Alan Wake and Deadly Premonition. So I really enjoy that aspect of it. I've had a few difficulties here and there with the dodging mechanic, because when sometimes, you press B, you can dodge an enemy, pass through them, which is very useful if you're going to try to use, I think, like the box cutter to to use as a melee attack. But the problem is sometimes it doesn't seem like the timing is perfect, and so you might dodge too early or too late, and then you just get hit. And of course, since this is survival horror, like I said, you only have so many herbs that you can use before you're just like out, and you might say, all right, I probably should just go ahead and boot up from my last save. And also, speaking of saves, so saves run off of a phone-based system. So you just go to a payphone, put in $1, and you can use the phone to save. Or later on, you can also make actual phone calls for other people. But it does sort of play on that film or limited film, or I think typewriter roll or whatever, or ink that you had for Resident Evil. So it does play on that type of mechanic there. But you do find ample amounts of cash here and there, so it's not like you're too worried. But you can also use cash for other stuff as well, to get hints and stuff and whatnot. But yeah, I think overall this game is very interesting, and I might check it out upon release, but I'm just not certain yet. But I definitely think that it is a high possibility that I will. And then the last game that I tried was called Screenbound. And this is a game I saw, I think, last year. Maybe at, like, I think the Summer Games Fest or something like that. And it looks interesting because it is a platformer that is both 2D and 3D, because you are, just moving around, and you have to pay attention not only to your surroundings in the 3D world, but also on your little not Game Boy to find other items, and also just to scan things. So I'm a bit mixed on this. The concept, when I first saw it, was very intriguing, and I said, I think this looks great, but I don't know. Some stuff I feel like maybe could use a bit more polish with some of the platforming, or with especially with the platforming, could use a bit more polish. Certain things I'm not certain if I don't know if they're glitched or if I just wasn't doing something right, but for scanning some of the items with the not Game Boy, it was really hard to figure out why things weren't showing up, because there was one point where I'm trying to find a door, and I see the door right there when I'm trying to scan it, but nothing happens, and I kept looking around for a while. And I thought, okay, maybe I need to back up enough so that way enough of it shows up on the screen so I can access it. Nothing seemed to work there, and I was even wondering, all right, maybe it's on the other side of this wall. I tried looking around, nothing really seems to happen there. And then I came back later on and I saw that was working. So I don't know what happened on that end, but yeah, a couple of things just like that where I was like, it could be better.
Yeah.
And then I don't necessarily want to complain about this too much, but I just feel like there's been such an oversaturation that I feel like this has impacted my ability to, just think, oh, it's no big deal. And that is the
millennial writing.
It's like the little Game Boy keeps talking to you. It's like it has that sidekick quirky dialogue and stuff, and I'm just like, yeah, I mean, sure, this type of thing has happened before, but I just feel like there's just so much of it that I'm like, I really would not like you talking right now. So I don't know. That's like the other thing. I just makes me say I don't know if I would get this on launch or not. But even with discarding that, it's just some of the roughness with the platforming makes me hesitate to get this at launch. I mean, I'll probably still keep my eye on it, but as of right now, it's like I'll probably wait for a sale or something to get that. But yeah, that is everything that I have played this week.
All right. Yeah, I mean, when I looked at the gameplay, it definitely looked interesting. But after hearing what you have to say, I'm definitely more along the lines of, nah, I think I'll pass. Especially once you mentioned the millennial writing, I'm tired of it. It's just gotten ridiculous. And I mean, you and I are both millennials, with me being like a midway millennial and you being at the late end of millennials, but it's just, I mean, I get it. Yes, that is the way that a lot of us communicate, but that's not how, that's not good writing. That may be how we communicate in real life, but we don't need to have video games talk the way we do. It doesn't help anything. It's like, why not just have good writing instead? But, that's a foreign concept, I guess. Going back to Silver Pines, definitely looking at that, like, I love the art style. That's very cool. But the survival horror elements, I'm like, I'm kind of borderline on. So, but I mean, at least, like I said, it looks good, and from everything you said, it runs very well. So that's also very good, but I don't think that I don't think it will be one that I will play personally. All right. As far as what I've been playing, so I'm going to try to do this in relatively the order that, both the order of when I played them and the order of the amount of time I spent on them. I guess it'd probably be more along the lines of when I played them. So, first of all, I did play just a tiny bit more Yakuza. Basically, I just played enough to do some testing on my desktop. I mean, like I kind of barely started into the second chapter and got to the point where I was able to free roam and did like a couple of side things, or well, really it was just one side mission that was where there's like this rock group. It's a bunch of nerds that look like they're supposed to be greasers, and they want to learn how to be like bad and stuff, and that one was interesting to say the least. And earlier today when I was recording footage, I played long enough to get the next fighting form, the beast, I think is what it's called, where I mean you learn it from a chick who's like a collector or whatever. And anyway, so yeah, but the main thing that I want to note about this, so in terms of visuals and performance on my desktop, so with everything maxed out, 1440p, uncapped frame rate, I'm getting between 120 to 150, that range. It's a little over 150 typically is what it will go up to. So very good performance, looks really good. Something I decided to try though was seeing what would happen if I increase the field of view, because usually most games you increase the field of view, it basically just makes it so that everything around you is bigger, but your character still is like close enough to the camera and it's not really weird. But in this game, if you increase the field of view, it like zooms out to the point where your character's like in the middle of the screen, like in the middle, not like just in the middle, like in the middle, like there's a bunch of space between the camera and your character, and it's zoomed out. So it was just kind of weird, and some of the footage will probably show that here. But yeah, I tried that for a little bit, just out of curiosity, because I do typically like having a larger field of view, but ultimately decided that I prefer either the default or maybe just slightly zoomed out. So there's that. But yeah, I'm not really planning to get into this game any further. I mean, I'm taking your suggestion and focusing more on Final Fantasy Type 0 for the moment. So speaking of which, I played a pretty good amount. I think I'm pretty close to the end of chapter 5. Right now I'm kind of just doing more grindy stuff. Unfortunately, I did encounter on one mission another situation where this time it was near the end of the mission that it froze because of the high frame rate. And it happened to me twice, which was really frustrating. And then the one time I got close to the end of the mission, I was almost done with it after I had lowered the frame rate back down to 30 just to keep it from freezing. And then I died. So I went back and did it one more time and then, finished it. But one of the things that I have realized with this game, and it was kind of something I noticed early on, but I was initially just ignoring it, was some of the English voice acting is just bad. Like really, really bad. And there's one character in particular where it's so bad that I just was finally like, I'm switching to the Japanese voices because
oh no,
it was so distractingly bad. And I mean, it's not even like a major character, it's just one of the people in the class, but every time he talks, his delivery of his lines is so horrible that I couldn't deal with it, and so I finally just switched over to Japanese voices. But there's something else I was going to mention about that. Oh yes, so I mean, Square Enix has done this with some other games, but this one it's been more noticeable. So when they do remasters of their games, typically they will update the character models for all of the like main characters, but they won't update the rest of them. And unfortunately, there are times where you have, like, you're looking at the main characters, the playable characters, who all have updated models, they look really nice and everything, and then they're talking to someone who doesn't have an updated model, and both have lip movements, but one of them is, very clearly the PSP model, and the other one is not. And it's just like, wow, that's really distracting. And there's no way to toggle that. Otherwise, I would just switch it back. I mean, I know that in general, like the main character models are always going to be are pretty much always better anyway. But it's that much more so in this, where it's like you have the HD upgraded models that look like more of a modern Final Fantasy game versus basically a higher resolution version of the lower detail PSP models. And so it gets pretty bad at times. Something that I also have to say that this is a nitpick more than anything else, but when it comes to the cutscenes in this game, so there's any of the pre-rendered cutscenes were very clearly done with a certain art style based on what the PSP could do and everything, and I really liked that art style. I thought it was really good. And the new art style that they have for the characters is still good, but I think the old art style was better. And so, like, whenever it brings up the PSP cutscenes, it's like, I really like the way the characters look. I love that style significantly more. But then whenever you have, like, the regular cutscenes that are not the pre-render that actually, you know, run at the higher frame rate and everything, those ones end up being a whole different story, you know, where it's, you have the drastic difference between the new character models versus the PSP low resolution models. Or well, not low resolution, but low detail. So, I mean, they're more nitpicks, and it's not like ruining my enjoyment of the game, but it is distracting when it comes up. So, it's kind of just one of those things that I had to deal with. There's something else I was gonna say about this. I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh, actually, it wasn't this. It was with Yakuza. I did actually figure out that there is a way to make it so that the cutscenes are the same frame rate that the rest of the game is. So it's just, I can't remember which menu it's in, but there's some menu that you can go into, and then you can just set it so that the cutscenes are not, that the cutscene frame rate is not capped, so it's the same as everything else. I don't know if I've come across any cuts. I don't think I've actually had any cutscenes come up since then, because I haven't played very much, but yeah, I mean, like, it just, I guess, kind of talking a little more about Yakuza, just mentioning a couple other things. And you'll notice in the footage here that it's showing the really zoomed out field of view. But the I did do a couple of the mini game side activities, the home run thing, and I also did the claw machine. And man, they make that claw machine as bad as a real one, where it's like really hard to get anything. I did manage to finally get a kappa, but it took a lot of tries. I mean, I had lots of yen, so it wasn't a huge deal, but it's just like, man, I spent forever, but I was determined to get something out of it, and then I really wanted to get the kappa, and so that's what I went for, and eventually I got the kappa doll. But yeah, so yeah, but anyway, going back to the other stuff I've been playing. So Final Fantasy Type 0, I'm still actively working on that, playing it mostly on my Steam Deck. I ended up playing quite a bit of Destiny 2 over the weekend. I actually finished up the Legendary campaign with my first character. My buddy Soder helped me with that last mission. It took us quite a few tries to get through it, because I tried it a handful of times on my own, and I just wasn't really making progress. And then he came in and we did it a bunch of times, and eventually we were able to finish it. Basically got to the point where he was about ready to hop off, because it was like after 10 o'clock, and of course we had church the next morning. I mean, he lives in Minnesota. He's actually, I was introduced to him indirectly through Nick Ricada. So, because he knows Nick personally. But anyway, so Soder, I introduced Soder to Destiny 2, and he actually has more hours in Destiny 2 than I do, even though he's played less time in terms of years. But yeah, so he and I were playing, and we finally got through that last mission. And then the next day I started up with my second character, just playing on normal, and it was so much easier that I breezed through the entire campaign and, you know, finished it up before the end of the day, and then went straight into starting with my third character, which I've only done the first mission so far. I played a little more this evening and finished up the first mission, but Yeah, so I mean, of course, campaign's really good, and it's definitely I definitely enjoyed it a lot more going through it on normal difficulty because it's so much easier, and very a lot easier to get through the entire thing solo. I mean, I think I did all of the missions solo except for the last one on legendary. I mean, it just took me a lot longer to get through. Um, Not by any means the most difficult game I've played, but it's just the legendary campaign is significantly harder than the regular campaign. And I'm not particularly skilled anyway, so that makes it even harder. But it is what it is. So anyway, yeah, I'm having a good time with Destiny 2. I'm glad that I'm back into it and had a chance to play with both Soder and one of the other guys from the group, from the same group that I met when I really started playing with a group regularly back in 2018, shortly after my dad died. And so I've had a chance to play with a couple of those guys, and that's been good. But yeah, it's good stuff. I've played mostly when I've been playing on my desktop, it's been mouse and keyboard. When I play it on my laptop, it's been mostly the QRD controller. I did actually do mouse and keyboard this evening just because I already had it connected to my monitor and keyboard and everything, and so I decided, might as well. But yeah, so there's that. Now, one of the games that I hadn't planned on playing, but I just kind of decided to play, I can't remember the exact reason that I wasn't interested in playing it. I think it might have actually been after I had attempted completing the that final mission in the Final Shape campaign solo for a while, and then was getting frustrated, and so I just decided, okay, I'm gonna play something completely different, and I went back to Hellblade 2, and I actually played the rest of the game. I forgot to switch over the footage here, so this one, annoyingly, the footage has the mouse cursor in the left side of the recording. If I remember to, I'll try and see if I can get the recording, the actual other footage I have from my desktop moved over. But yeah, so it is what it is. But yeah, so I played it and I finished the game. I haven't decided if I'm going for the last 4 achievements or not. The main thing is that I would have to replay the game once, which I haven't really decided when or if I want to do, because, I mean, it took me about 8 hours to complete the game, and granted, some of that was with, not really rushing through it, of course. I mean, the game is a really, really good-looking game. And actually, I enjoyed the story. I thought the story was very good. There's a lot of things I really like about the game. The one thing I have to say that I really ultimately do not like so much about it is I feel like the combat is worse in this game than it was in the first game. Like, the first game, it wasn't great, but it was decent enough. This one, I feel like it's worse than it was in the first game. And maybe it's an Unreal Engine 5 thing. Maybe it's just because they were so focused on making it look so incredibly detailed. But either way, the combat was the one real downside of this game more than anything else. And of course, it's mostly just a walking simulator apart from that, with some light puzzle solving here and there. But yeah, the story was interesting, and I did enjoy it overall. Not something that I would ever I wouldn't tell someone to spend more than $10 on this game, because I don't think it's really worth that. Unless you just want something that's a good story that's, really pretty and everything. But in terms of gameplay, it's so-so. So there's that. But apart from all those things, the thing that I ended up playing today, just because it was on sale, I got it for super cheap and had been curious about it for a long time, is Timesia. And I have only played, basically, I finished the tutorial and then I played a little bit into the first area. Like, I got basically just past the, there's this mini boss that's like a clown with a hammer that's right near one of the save point chair things. And so that's about the extent of how far I've gotten in the game. And I played a bit on the Steam Deck first. I need to really figure out the best settings to get the right balance between visuals and performance, because I could get a locked 60 if I reduce the resolution, scaling down to 75%, but visually that just doesn't look very good, and it's kind of distracting how bad it looks. And so and I tried like using FSR and stuff, and I think ultimately I just have to mess around with the settings and figure out what's the best. I've heard medium is pretty good. The game does have some stutters though, both on Steam Deck and on the desktop. I'm sorry, not on the desktop, on the laptop. The laptop is the other place where I played it, where I basically did all of what I did in the first area. So laptop, I'm getting, with all the settings maxed out, I'm getting around 120 FPS. Pretty average. I think it dips slightly below that sometimes, but it's like 100 to 120. So I'm pretty happy with that. And you know, like when I played through the tutorial, I wasn't sure what I thought about it. Like I was kind of mixed on whether it was something that I might consider just returning, getting a refund. But because of the fact that I wanted to see how it ran on the laptop, when I ran it on there, I was like, okay, I'm getting this. I'm actually liking it. So I'm gonna keep it for sure. I'm probably not really gonna play it right now. It's just more, I figured, especially since I just got it, I might as well at least try it out, because that way if I don't like it, I can just do a refund. But if I do like it, then I'll keep playing, at least in time. I have other Souls-likes ahead of it in terms of, the order, but yeah, I'm pretty, I do like it. I like what I've played, and I can see how the mechanics definitely have a good amount of complexity to them, and it's just kind of figuring out all the different systems with that. And since I haven't played a ton of it, it's hard to say whether or not in time I would find myself still enjoying it or ending up hating it. I will say so far I've not been able to figure out the parry timing at all, but I did, before I stopped playing, add some abilities that basically, from what I could tell, essentially increase the parry window, just make it deal less damage, which is perfectly fine for me because I just want to be able to parry the attacks. And if I can do that, then that would be nifty. But yeah, that's everything.
All right. So Timesia, that's a game I have not heard of in a while. And I mean, I played it maybe 2-3 years ago. I know it was sometime after the Steam Deck came out. Yeah, I mean, I got through the first few areas before I think I got stuck, and I was like, yeah, I think I should just take a break from the game, but I never came back to it. But yeah, I mean, what I played, it was decent. I mean, initially my thought was, okay, this is Bloodborne. The closer we're gonna get to Bloodborne on PC. Of course, this was before we got the emulated version. But I was like, all right, if this is the closest I can get to playing Bloodborne right now, that's fine with me.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, wow. Yeah, it definitely good to hear about this game again. I can definitely agree that the parry window is a bit tricky. I mean, I also was trying to figure out exactly when I needed to parry, because sometimes it would work, and I think for like the first main boss you fight, I kept trying to parry him, and he gave me so much grief over that, where I was like, all right, maybe I should just stop trying to parry and just dodge instead, which still ended up being a pain, especially in a second phase. But it was like it was a whole lot easier for me at the time than just trying to say, all right, time to parry this guy.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe at some point I'll go back to that. That's something I do need to get back to, because the second area, the reason why I like stopped was because that was sort of like the I guess you could say the poison swamp area of the game.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, I don't think I want to do this right now. But yeah, definitely glad to hear that. For Final Fantasy Type 0 or Type O, I just thought about now, is there any sort of forum or comment thread talking about the game? Because I was wondering if someone had or could have cataloged all the areas where the mod will cause the game to freeze up, and I was wondering if that way could sort of like prepare you ahead of time. If they're,
I haven't looked into that, but I'll have to check that. I can probably check the mod page and see if it says anything about specific areas that cause that.
Yeah, and I just thought about it because I was like, it's, of course, the first time I was like, all right, cool, that's a thing. But if you're going to, have it randomly happen, especially at the end of a mission,
yeah,
that could be a bit annoying. So I was just wondering if, like, hey, you might know a way to sort of save yourself a bit of grief or not.
Yeah.
And then last question I had, how would you say the combat is worse in Hellblade 2? Is it like the mechanics themselves that have changed? Is it,
honestly,
maybe...
I think the biggest thing is the parry is just not quite as easy to figure out. Like I felt like I had a pretty easy time getting the parry down, at least half the time when I was playing the first game, whereas this one I don't think I ever really got a good, well, I would get the parry down occasionally, but most of the time it was just like, no, not even close. I didn't die a whole lot, but it still just was kind of annoying.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's get into the news. So I think first we probably need to kind of end this saga as best as we can with this whole PlayStation PC port stuff. And this, I think, will probably be the last time we really talk about it, unless we see some more PC ports in the future. But let me just go over essentially what happened here. So, first of all, we have from there was an interview with Hideaki Nishino, who is one of the CEOs at PlayStation. And this is something that happened very recently. It was here. The interview was with, I think it was with a Japanese publication. I can't remember which one. It may have been, oh gosh, what's the name of that one?
Famitsu?
Famitsu, yes. And so this is a translation of what he said. But he was asked very specifically about the rumor of them moving away from PC, from first-party games coming to PC, from their single-player first-party games coming to PC. So the translation of what Nishino said, he said, in response to this, he says, if releasing a title on PC would maximize the gaming experience, we'll continue to consider that option. Our current main policy is that for single-player games developed in-house, we will further refine the value of the gaming experience that PlayStation can offer. At the same time, we believe it is important for live service games to reach a wider audience through online multiplayer, so we continue to view releases on both PS5 and PC as the standard. Now, going further beyond that, following this, because essentially that first statement that they'll continue to consider that option makes it kind of sound like it's a case-by-case basis, Jason Schreier chimes in on Reset Era and says, no, there's no case-by-case basis. They are moving away from single-player first-party games on PC. So Jason Schreier's contradicting that, even though he's not the CEO. So there's that side. But then we go beyond that. And PlayStation has, in their annual business report for 2026, removed their thing about gaining revenue from PC as part of their annual business report. So it seems like there's kind of mixed messaging. There's nothing clear here. Because on the one hand, he's saying that if releasing the title on PC would maximize the gaming experience, whatever that means, we'll continue to consider that option. So they said that they're still willing to consider it. But their main policy is that they are, of course, going to refine the value. They say refine the value of gaming experience that PlayStation can offer. Most likely, they're basically just, whether this is saying PlayStation, these games are coming to PlayStation only, which he didn't actually say that, but I mean, it's like, okay, they're going to bring more of their single player first party games to PlayStation, obviously. Beyond that, it's up to interpretation, but it's I know it was obviously very intentionally not clear. But then of course you go back to, I mean, like, Jason Schreier aside, like I would say Jason Schreier, I take him with a grain of salt anyway, because he's not the CEO. He's saying that people have told him that Herman Hulst said this stuff, and if it's true, then it's true. But once again, Herman Hulst hasn't come out and said it publicly. So you have a public statement from Nishino, and you have a non-public statement from Herman Hulst that's backed up by something that Jason Schreier heard from a couple of different sources that supposedly work at PlayStation. Presumably they work at PlayStation. So you have contradicting evidence there. But then you have them taking PC off of their annual business report in terms of what it is that they are focusing on for their let me just bring up the article here. Give me 1 second. Okay, so a line from last year's report stated that Sony plans to continue its efforts to deploy its first-party titles to multiple platforms, such as PC, but that's been completely cut out of the 2026 version of their business report. And they have added elsewhere that Sony is utilizing AI to unleash the creativity of studios and further enhance the PlayStation experience. So it sounds like they're taking PC off, but is it that they're taking PC off? Or is it that they are simply not making PC profitability a priority because, or at least, well, I don't know. There's a whole lot of confusion here. And as much as PlayStation fans and fanboys want to say this is clear as day because, you know, they want to believe that, and it may very well be the case that that's what they're trying to say, they seem to be kind of leaving the door open. And then, of course, even if you say, oh, well, they pulled this information about PC off of their business report, yes, they pulled that off, but then at the same time, they also said that they're still going to be releasing their live service games on PC and PlayStation. So it's like, maybe they're not focused on making PC a priority in terms of earning money from that, because they've realized that not just the PC players aren't going to buy their games as much, but they might still bring games over. Or maybe they really are just straight up not doing their single player games at all. They're just doing the live service, but they're just not, for whatever reason, they're not mentioning on their business report that aspect because of the fact that it's not guaranteed. I mean, there could be any number of reasons why it is that they're not including that there. But in the end of it all, it's a whole lot of confusion and a whole lot of lack of clarity. So, with all of that being said, as we finish out this last time discussing this topic, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a whole lot of just a whole lot of inconsistency with what we're being shown here. Nothing is really, I mean, even before this point, it really wasn't cut and dry as far as what's going to happen with PC and PlayStation. it's been weird. So on the one hand, you have the CEO or one of the CEOs saying, "Hey, single player stuff, we'll see what happens. It's not off the table, but we'll see what happens." And then also just saying, "Hey," and then also saying multiplayer games, those will still come over. But then you have this report which removes everything, and it's like, okay, you're not mentioning that now, so what's up with that? So it's really it really is weird, and I'm not really even sure what to say because granted, when the actual I can't remember it was. Is there a date or range? Okay, I don't really see. Okay, let me see if I can find the actual date. But I mean, from at least what we have here in the Insider Gaming and Video Games Chronicle articles, like the Insider Gaming article came out on June 18th, and the Video Games Chronicle one came out 3 days later on the 21st. So it's like it's a very short time span between these two things. Now, granted, of course, the Insider Gaming one that happened originally in an article, in an interview, which happened, of course, earlier than that. So it's the time span would have still been a bit wider, but still, it's within a short amount of time that there's a lot being done, and it's really not clear at all. Now, I will probably still think that multiplayer stuff is going to be maybe guaranteed. I think.
I mean, that's pretty much what he said.
That's like what he said. And I think
even Jason Schreier basically said the multiplayer stuff, the live service stuff was still coming.
And I'll still probably say that it might be still a case by case for single player stuff. It might still be the case, and I think you can have both. I don't think there's really anything necessarily that would conflict with the with PC being removed from the report and the CEO saying we aren't fully backing out of PC, because something that I thought about as you were discussing things was that perhaps the reason why they are removing PC from their report is because they don't want to have a segment seem bad to investors. So if you're saying, hey, we are investing in PC, and then, next report comes around, hey, why are sales not doing so well on PC?
Yeah.
Then, that's people are going to either sell, if of course, overall the quarter, or I guess fiscal year, doesn't look good, then they might start, pulling out, or they might just still have some sort of skepticism, and then, of course, the stock goes down. So that could be one reason why it happens, why that happens. So I don't think these two necessarily are like, okay, because one thing happens, this has to happen with the other thing. I think it could be a both situation where it still is a case-by-case thing, and also at the same time, Sony just doesn't want to disappoint their investors. That's one thing. Like you said, they could also just be shifting their main focus on what they want to, or what they're telling their investors they want to focus on, and say, hey, here's AI, and we will use this to make we'll use AI to be very efficient, and it'll help with our development process, and it'll allow us to insert big corporate words and stuff that will help maximize profit potential and stuff like that. So that could be a reason why. So that's something they could be working on. I mean, I don't know. And I mean, still, I feel like even to a degree, the AI planning is still a bit, I mean, not completely, but still a bit vague as like, okay, what are you doing with AI in your games now? Like, are you using that for like the development stuff? Are you using it for the basic? Are you using it for basic design? Are you using it for later on refining stuff? Like, what are you using AI for, Sony? I mean, I feel like one reason why they're probably using it is to try to save costs and stuff, but maybe one of the things that would help you save costs is not try to make everything a big AAA cinematic experience. Like, that probably is going to save
That's heresy.
Oh wait, I can hear the oh no, it's the PlayStation police. Oh no, they're coming in. But it's really I feel like that's probably one of the reasons why, especially in the case of, you know, or maybe the fear that their games might not do as well as they hope. Like, if you look at Saros, that game possibly did not sell as well as Sony would have liked. So if they're trying to avoid making a gamble, then that would probably be one reason why, which, I mean, is also still in them. But, you know, again, I feel like, sure, you will have to take the time and resources to make these ports, but you could still make some money if you port the games. I mean, I'm not saying that everyone, like, certainly I wouldn't, is going to do this day one, but, you know, say you had a game that is $60 and, I don't know, let's just say 3 million people buy the game at $60. That's $18 million you make off of that right there. So, you know, you can still have some sort of revenue. It might be, you know, pocket change for you, but it's still going to be something, and it's going to be a whole lot more than nothing. I'll tell you that much. So it's really up to Sony. And I mean, we'll discuss this later on with like the next topic, but with, you know, with the upcoming hardware, with like the PS7, you know, are you really going to try to make sure that people are going to buy one? I mean, some people are probably, you know, gonna say, man, I would not buy a PS5 right now just because of the price, and then we don't know how much the PS6 is gonna cost, and so, you know, if that's going to be also over $1,000, then that's gonna be a harder sell. So it's like, okay, if you want to have people play on your console, Sony, that's fine, but understand that doing it right now is a very risky strategy, because the hardware prices have gone up, which means that people are less inclined to buy your hardware.
Yeah.
So if you are locking these exclusive games behind expensive hardware, that doesn't mean people are going to want to buy it. I mean, some people might say, hey, that's fine. I will spend this money and buy the console and get this one game or get these two games. But a lot of people are going to be saying, are you kidding me? I am not spending this much money just to play one game. Like, that is a very risky thing to do. So, you know, I would think that it's in Sony's best interest to try to, you know, go ahead and get as much money as they can where they can, because of the fact that hardware sales are just not going to be what they would like them to be. So, I mean, yes, it's not, you know, Sony's fault that hardware components are expensive, but at the same time, if you're going to be selling them for that high and you're going to make the games exclusive, then, you know, you're really just going to ask for lower sales. But, you know, I still think, or at least part of me still thinks the reason why they are backing out as much as they are, which could also be because of low sales, but again, that's also their fault because they released games late and at full price. But it's really possibly mostly or largely because they just do not want Xbox Helix, or whatever the full official name is going to be for the Xbox, to have their games via Steam, since it's going to have access to Steam.
Yeah.
So that's possibly a large reason why I think they're pulling out. But we'll see what happens with this in the future. If Sony continues to port games, cool. I mean, I just really hope they're the games I want, because some of the games haven't been the games I want. But if they don't, then that's fine, because I still do have some games that they put out over that I'm like, all right, I will play this. And there are some games I still need to finish. But ultimately, though, it won't hurt me, because I already have, a lot of games in my backlog to get through anyway, so I'm not going to be hurting. Would I still like to have Gravity Rush? Yes. Would I still like to have a native port of Bloodborne? Yes. Would I like to have Demon Souls? Yes. But at the same time, there are other ways to do it. Like, we can emulate them right now. It might not be the greatest thing, but as time passes, the emulation will get better, and it'll just improve. So it just might be a matter of waiting on our end. So, but it's like, one way or another, these games will come or are already here.
Yep.
It's just a matter of, do you want to play ball, Sony? That's essentially what it boils down to.
Yep.
But that is those are my thoughts on everything.
Well, I've been looking at these different things and really kind of going back and forth. And initially, before we started talking about it, the thing about them removing PC stuff from their business report and then adding stuff about AI made me think, oh, well, maybe this is their way of indirectly confirming that they're not going to do PC ports anymore. But then, of course, I remembered that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, because of the fact that they said basically their live service games are still coming. So it's like they're still expecting to make some money off of PC, because otherwise they wouldn't even bother putting the games on PC. But ultimately, kind of where I fall with all of this, and some people are going to say, oh, this is hopium. I don't even care about their games anymore. Like, even if their games come over, with the exception of older stuff like you mentioned, like with Bloodborne and the Gravity Rush games, short of them bringing some of their older titles over that I actually want, the current stuff that they have planned to be coming out, or that's already out that hasn't come to PC, is stuff I'm not super interested in. Like, some of those, if they were cheap, maybe at some point I'd consider grabbing them, like Ghost of Yotei, for example. But from the standpoint of, am I wanting to play them to the point where if they came to PC, I would buy them day one? No, probably not. It's highly unlikely. I mean, unless they did it at like a significant discounted rate. That would be the one way I might consider it. Might being the key word. But to go back to my overall thoughts on this, with the way everything was worded, this is much like that that statement that Jason Schreier put in his original article claiming all this, that plans can change. And based on what Hideaki Nishino said, it sounds like that's basically what he's saying, is that the plan is the plan until it's not the plan. Him saying that, we'll continue to consider the possibility of bringing titles over, essentially. Let me bring up that quote one more time just to make sure I'm not misquoting, because I definitely don't think that was exactly the words that he said. Here it was. Okay, so he said, if releasing a title on PC would maximize the gaming experience, we'll continue to consider that option. So they'll continue to consider the option of bringing games over to PC. I mean, he said that plain and simple right here. So it is basically more or less, this is case by case based on what he's saying. Now, right now, it might not be their plan to bring anything over to PC, but they left the door open to where it's like, okay, if the plans change, we can still bring stuff over to PC, because we didn't outright say we're not bringing stuff over to PC. And that way they have an out, even though, of course, you'll have outrage from the people who, are against PC ports. If it happens again. And then you'll have others just moving the goalpost. Because, that's what they do. But in the end, like, whether this happens or not doesn't really affect us. I more want it for the people who actually want the games, because it would be good for people to have the option. But right now, the way I'm looking at it, based on what Nishino said, is that more likely than not, what would maximize the gaming experience would be if the game doesn't sell well enough on PlayStation, they'll put it on PC. I think that's really what the determining factor is going to be. And obviously we'll have to wait and see whether or not that ends up being the case. I don't know if the sales of Ghost of Yotei would be considered low enough to where they would think that it should come to PC. I would say if it was going to happen with anything, it would probably be Sorrows. Just because of the fact that one, as far as we can tell, did not sell well at all. And the fact that it didn't sell well basically makes it like prime candidate for a PC port for a second chance at actually being able to sell. But also, I'm not like expecting anything. I just, based on how vague all of this is, it's impossible to say for sure. One last thing I want to know with all of this, the fact that AI became a part of their business report just says to me, hey, guess what, PlayStation fans? In exchange for not putting these games on PC anymore, doing this for you guys, we're going to use AI to make it cheaper to produce, which means, and probably in some cases, that's going to be including using it for coding, because they can do that. And you're going to start getting AI slop instead. Or at least like my guess is that they would probably use it for coding and then go back and check stuff. But then probably there would end up being some issues here and there. At least that's what I would guess is going to happen. Either way, PlayStation fans are going to be paying more for everything. Now, are they going to be paying more for the PlayStation 6? I've seen some people theorize that it's going to be cheaper than the PS5 Pro, and tactically that's possible. But honestly, I kind of doubt it. I'm thinking, if they make it cheaper than the PS5 Pro, they are going to subsidize the heck out of it. They're going to start charging more for games. All their games are going to be $80 as the default price. They're going to start charging more for PlayStation Plus. They're going to find every single way they can to nickel and dime their users, because if that's what they see as the best way to make more money, to make the line go up, that's what they're going to do. And they've already said that they were going to continue to monetize their users, and they were going to find ways to further monetize their users. They said that in the fireside chat last year, and there's no reason to believe that's changed. So, in the end of it all, we will wait and see if anything happens, but as far as I'm concerned, this topic is closed until something comes to PC. And if nothing comes to PC, that's fine. We'll play the games we want to play, whether by just simply emulating them or eventually getting a native PC port, or waiting 10 plus years until there's what we need to emulate PS5, whatever it is. But personally, I don't see anything that's like exciting enough to where I want to emulate it. The stuff I would be interested in emulating at this point is PS4 and earlier. And PS4, while not all of the games are emulatable yet, we're making progress on that. Bloodborne has come a long way and is in excellent shape now. The Gravity Rush games are in excellent shape now. There's quite a few other games that are in excellent shape for emulation. And so it's just a matter of waiting. And it's not like we have a shortage of stuff to play while we wait. And even when it's available, it might be like, okay, I'll check that out at some point. It's like I have both the Gravity Rush games, Gravity Rush Remastered and Gravity Rush 2, on my Steam Deck and on my laptop, ready and able to be played. And I'm like, I'd like to play. I'd like to go back to Gravity Rush 2 and play the rest of that game, but I'm playing other stuff right now, so it's there when I want it. It's simple as that. But yeah, that's all I got.
A couple things I sort of wanted to add. He mentions the the PS6, and the price is subsidizing, or rather, AI. And I'm thinking, companies say, hey, we're using this to make development costs cheaper. That doesn't necessarily mean that the PS5 gamers are going to receive cheaper games. Like, they're probably games still going to be ending up being $70 and
$80.
Depending on the price of GTA 6, PS6 games might be $80.
I think they're going to be $80 regardless. Especially if they try to release the PS6 while the hardware stuff, the crisis is still going on with RAM and storage and all that.
Yeah.
If they actually delay it, which I think they should, I think they should just delay it until hopefully like 2028. Hopefully by then things will go back to the way they were before, and it won't be so expensive to make these consoles, and they don't have to do as much of that. But I still think $80 games are going to be the norm next generation.
Yeesh.
At least on the console side.
Insane.
And PC will obviously catch up with that eventually.
Yeah.
But
it's just ridiculous. Now,
that's when we'll just play our old games instead.
Yeah, we've got our libraries. And I've seen one thing, and I'm, like you said, I hope this is not the case, but since this came from Kepler, I couldn't find like where he actually said this, but this is something that I saw that shared that he said was that the PS6 is possibly coming out 2027, which is next year, which I'm like, that's really soon. Sony hasn't said anything about it. I mean, granted, they could save it for later on, but the hardware crisis is still going on. Like, would they really do that?
I hope that they're smart enough to just push it back, because that would be a much better idea, because they will sell way more consoles that way if they push it back, and they will not have to subsidize well, they're still going to subsidize their users regardless, but they can actually make a profit on their consoles, whereas if they are releasing it during this RAM crisis, all they're going to end up doing is putting themselves in a position where they're having to subsidize their users so much, and they're still, at best, breaking even on the hardware, if not losing money. We'll obviously be talking with the next topic about the crazy prices for the Steam machine, and granted, Valve, of course, doesn't have like all the can't get the contracts that like someone big like Sony could get. And so, their RAM issues certainly, their ability to get RAM is a lot harder than it is for the bigger companies, but we'll get to that. So,
yeah. And then I guess the one last thing I want to talk about for this topic is I was trying to actually pull up the annual reports, but for some reason I keep getting just an error message when I click the link in the VGC link, because I was very curious also knowing to just like figure out. Now, granted, yes, Sony is a Japanese company, but I was wondering how this was being filed, as far as was this being fully mentioning Sony completely? Is it something that's possibly mentioning maybe more so like the American branch of Sony? I just want to know like how, like what specific details of Sony are being mentioned here, because if it's like saying, if it's more so like the US branch saying like, hey, we're doing this stuff, we're removing it, and maybe say it's different from what the Japanese company is saying, like if they're saying something that would be different in their filings. That's something that I was just curious about, knowing like who, as far as Sony, is saying that they're removing this stuff. I was just curious about that, but I just really couldn't really pull that up.
Yeah, I tried bringing it up too, and it just gave me an error message. So
yeah. Oh well. Yeah, I was just curious about that though.
yeah. All right.
But yeah, nothing further from me.
All right. You want to talk about these Steam machine prices which just got revealed?
Yeah. So, yesterday, Valve did it. Of course, we've been talking about the potential of the Steam machine being revealed, and yeah, Valve revealed it. All right, gave us a date, or not necessarily a date, but they gave us prices. All right, where should I start? So the base price of the Steam machine is $1,049 for 512 gigabytes. If you want the controller, that's gonna cost you $1,128. Again, for 512 gigabytes. If you want 2 terabytes of storage, it's gonna cost you $1,349 without a controller. If you do want a controller, that's going to cost you $1,428. Yeah, and I mean, and if you want, you can also get extra faceplates with the 2 terabyte models. One's a solid walnuts one, and the other one's a red fabric one, if you want that. Obviously, people weren't exactly thrilled about this, and
Nope.
they're up for pre-order. Valve is doing something very different. In fact, this is something that it's just very different. So they have a list you can sign up for each model. If you want to, you can sign up for one of them, or you can sign up for all of them. And essentially what they're doing is they're having this window period where you can sign up for whichever models you want, and at the end of it, which I think is on the 25th, when it closes, then they will have a randomizer, and for everyone who's signed up on the list, they will have they'll just have a random order from everyone in that particular list for each item, for each version, and that's the queue from that point on. So it's weird. It's definitely different. But Valve said the reason why that is because they wanted to give people who wouldn't have the time or weren't fast enough to just do a regular, pre-order type of thing, to be able to have a chance to get one, which I can understand, but it's just different. But definitely that price, though, it's definitely something one way or another.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a whole lot to just dig into here, and I've got a ton to say, but what are your thoughts? I mean, apart from the obvious, what are your thoughts on this whole disaster?
I mean, we heard, I mean, especially after they raised the price of the Steam Deck, we knew that the price was going to be expensive for the Steam machine. But this is ridiculous. This is not acceptable. I mean, like, while I get it, why it's so expensive, it's still too expensive. It's not worth the cost. Like, in the past, I would have recommended it if it had been the cost that they were wanting it to be, which they said that it was going to be around $750, and I'm thinking that that's probably for the basic 512 gig model, probably without a controller, would be my guess. I'm not 100% positive on that part, because I didn't look at the article that closely from IGN, but the fact of the matter is, to have even the most basic version without a controller being $1,050. And yes, if you buy the controller, it's like an extra, I think, $70, if I remember correctly. So it's like a little bit cheaper if you're getting the controller with it than if you're buying the controller independently, but it's still expensive, and it's too much for what you're getting. Even though it's a PC and you have the freedom that comes with it, and for anything that's not like a brand new game, with the exception of like the 2D stuff and the stuff that's really well optimized, even though those older games are going to run way better on there than they run on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, simply by the fact that they're not hard capped in the way that things are on those. Anything current, like there's been a bunch of tests done and it just doesn't run well. I mean, I do think that there will be exceptions to that rule, of course. Anything that's come from Capcom recently, that definitely is not going to be. I mean, that's more likely to do perfectly fine on the Steam machine. But a lot of other titles that are not well optimized, especially the Unreal Engine 5 games, holy crap, those ones are going to run like trash on this thing. And based on the testing that has been done, it's been very clearly demonstrated. For one, of course, the fact that they are saying 1080p is what it takes to be verified on the Steam machine. Never mind the 4K 60 with FSR that they claimed. Even when they add FSR 4, which should be coming pretty soon, FSR 4 cannot make up that much of a difference. And so this price is just way too high. And I mean, as much as I understand that costs have gone way up, and Valve didn't want to subsidize because, especially with all these accusations of them being a monopoly, the last thing they wanted to do is do something that could make them look more like a monopoly. It's also just, oof. For everything positive about this hardware, particularly the freedom you get, the fact that it's an open platform, you can do essentially whatever you want with it. And you're not locked into a single store or ecosystem or anything else. You have a PC that you can do whatever the heck you want with it. If you don't want to have Linux on it, you can install Windows. You can technically install Mac OS, although obviously that requires some fiddling because of the fact that they don't want you installing Mac OS on non-Mac computers. That all aside, though, the point is that you can do whatever you want with this. So from that standpoint, it's a great piece of hardware, but the price is not worth it. The cost of this hardware, what you get for the cost is not worth the cost. Especially when you look at the top tier version being over $1,400 with a controller. It's just too much. It's just way too much for the hardware, even with the storage prices being as high as they are. Now, I was talking with some other guys about this, and particularly one of the guys I was talking to, he had actually sold like a console and a couple other and some old games and stuff, and he had basically saved up with the idea that he would probably buy a Steam machine.
Oh.
And this was beforehand. Now he has enough that he can afford to do it, but I suggested to him, hey, you'd probably be better off building a PC or getting a pre-built, because you can get a good pre-built that's going to be much stronger for about the same price, if not less, easily. Furthermore, like a while back I had put together that micro ATX build that would be essentially equal to the PS5 Pro. Very similar specs and everything, 16 gigs of VRAM and all that, using a 9060 XT. Has a decent CPU, but considering the CPU in the in the PS5 Pro is not very good, it would be more than sufficient. It only has 16 gigs of RAM, but the 16 gigs are plenty good enough when you're just playing games. And then a terabyte SSD. With all of that, in the smaller case, it ended up being, I think I checked the price today through PC Part Picker, and it was like $925, which is a way better price for a much stronger machine. And that's still going to have all the freedom that you get with PC. And like I know in the case of this guy, like he has the regular ROG Ally. And so he would be able to easily just, take any PC games he already has. If he decided to go with Windows rather than Steam OS, then he would have the ability to do Game Pass stuff. I can't remember if he still has Game Pass. And then if he just wants to do Steam OS, hey, the one plus side of all of this is that Valve is making SteamOS 3.8 available for people to use on their computer, so you can build your own Steam machine. This could be his Steam machine, and he'd be spending significantly less and get a much stronger system. And so, all of that being said, obviously I'm not getting one of these. At least not now. If the price goes way down in the future, sometime down the line, maybe I'll consider it. But more likely than not, if I was going to do anything, I would probably do that mini micro ATX build and just build a PS5 Pro power equivalent for a more portable PC that we could, that the kids could use. Especially once we get the garage set up and all that. This is a disaster. Now, I mean, at least in Valve's case, they don't need to sell this hardware this hardware not selling isn't going to make or break them. It just isn't. Valve is extremely profitable without having any hardware at all. And a lot of people are saying this is going to be dead on arrival. I don't think it's going to be dead on arrival, but it's definitely not going to sell anywhere near as well as it would have if it were cheap. That's the reality. The price is just way too high, and so you're going to have the enthusiasts buy it. The people who just really, really want it, people who are reviewing it, things like that, will buy it. It will sell, and I think it's going to sell out. But I don't think that the average consumer, the kind of people who were originally thinking of this being their way to get into PC gaming, it's not going to sell to those people. At least not many of them. And the ones that do, it's probably only because of the fact that they're too intimidated with the idea of building their own PC and don't realize that they can get a PC that's stronger for less money easily. So, I don't know. This whole thing is just dumb. And something funny that's come out of this is now PlayStation fanboys are using this as a means to say, see, the PS5 Pro is a steal compared to this, or the PS5 is a steal compared to this. And the performance is pretty similar between this and the regular PS5. Obviously not running as well as the PS5 Pro. But the reality is they're both ripoffs. They just are. Because the PS5 Pro, you're spending $900 on a lockdown box. But yes, it's definitely much stronger than the Steam machine. But it's also locked down. You're stuck in that ecosystem. You have zero freedom. And games are more expensive. You have to pay for online. You are going to be monetized to hell and back. And you have a whole lot less games to choose from. You do get discounts on some games, and for sure, there are sometimes really good deals on games, but on Steam, you have significantly more games. That being said, I don't think that the Steam machine is worth the price. The asking price is just too high. It's too high even for the cheapest model, and for the average person who would be intimidated by the idea of having to do it with a separate controller instead of just having the Steam controller, because most people just want to have a controller with it by default. That's not going to work for them. So I think that it's a ripoff, regardless of whether you go with this or with the PS5 Pro. They're both ripoffs. And you're better off, frankly, just either building a small form factor gaming PC. It doesn't have to be small form factor. If you want it to be small form factor, though, it can be. Or getting a pre-built, because pre-builts, you can get something that is same price, cheaper, even And if you go for something that's expensive as the top end Steam Deck, or I'm sorry, Steam Machine, the 2 terabytes with a controller, if you go for a PC that's that high in price, you are going to get a significantly better PC, like drastically better, both better than the Steam Machine and better than the PS5 Pro by quite a lot. And this whole thing is dumb. It's dumb, and it's such a shame. If this had come out a year ago, they would have knocked it out of the park before all the prices increased. But it didn't come out a year ago. It was revealed last fall, and then all the prices shot up, and they got completely screwed. And now we have this ridiculously expensive piece of hardware that's just way too underpowered. And on top of that, there's a lot of stuff about it from everything I've been hearing that it's kind of half-baked. Like, it needs more work. I do think in time, this thing will be significantly better than it is right now. But the state that it's in at this current moment is not even anywhere near good enough, especially for the price. And I could keep ranting and rambling on, but I'm going to let you have your turn to rant and ramble.
Oh man, this is... I'll be honest. Like, I initially, when I saw this, I was... It's very strange because I was really wanting to be just furious about this, but I was just disappointed. I was just beyond disappointed with this thing because, sure, when we saw the price of the Steam Deck go up, I thought, this is not a good sign of things to come.
Yeah.
And I still had a sliver of hope that maybe, just maybe, Valve would not subsidize, but just bite the bullet. Trim off some of the price and be like, okay, here's the price. It still probably would be high, but it would be like, it's like maybe 800 for the 512 model and like 1,000 for the 2 terabyte model. And I'm like, that's still high, but I think it's definitely more palatable for people than just, both models being 1,000 plus.
Mm-hmm.
But like doing this is just, it's a very lose-lose situation. There's like people, like you said, you can buy pre-builts that are cheaper. This the funny thing is too is after this announcement, I saw people sharing posts of pre-builts that would wipe the floor of this with either 5060s or 4060s.
Mm-hmm.
And some people were even like sharing laptops and stuff. Now laptops, a couple of them I were like iffy on, like, would this really beat a Steam machine? I wasn't certain, but definitely with the desktops, yeah, that would definitely beat them. And you definitely can make a pre-build and outclass them. Mm-hmm. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, this is awful. Like, this is awful no matter how you look at it. And so before, I definitely was sort of against this idea, and I think especially now, considering what the prices are, I'm tripling down on the fact that all of the models should have had, well, there should have been two models. There should have been the 512 gigabyte model and the 2 terabyte model. Because if you're spending $1,000 plus, it better come with a controller. Like, there's no excuse for that at this point. Like, if before you there was the argument of, okay, if it's if people want to get something cheaper or if they don't want the controller, fine. But if you're spending $1,000, I expect you to have a controller. You better have a peripheral with this thing. Yeah. There's no excuse whatsoever to have to spend an extra $70 just to get a controller at these price points. Like, that is ridiculous, especially when you can buy pre-builts that cost $900 and they come with a mouse and keyboard with them, and you don't have to buy that stuff. So that's it. That is extra stupidity on Valve's end. Now, I watched a couple in-depth videos on this, and I hate everything about this, but I also will give a little bit of leeway to Valve. Like, absolutely, but you can definitely make a pre-built that is around the same price point and still be much more powerful. The bigger issue does come down to, though, if you're buying a small form factor. That is something that is definitely a bit more compromising. Like there's one video that Gamers Nexus did, and you could you can make a pre-built that is about $7 cheaper. Although I will actually say that the issue I found with that pre-built was it was using micro ATX and not mini ITX, which is more closer to the Steam machine. And additionally, the power supply was iffy at best. In my opinion, that's like, I had never heard of this brand before. So I sort of like made my own Steam machine with prices and stuff. And so like taking into account in consideration, also I was trying to also make things as cheap as possible. So I used like AM4 and even it like that stuff still would have been pretty decent, comparable to the Steam machine, even though that's using DDR5. So like even with using that type of stuff, and even using like a PCIe 3.0, which honestly you can use that's fine for gaming SSD. But like all in all, and also I was trying to make sure that I wouldn't buy anything that would be like buy some weird off-brand Chinese $30 PSU that could just blow up on you. So like with the parts I chose, I got about, and it did fluctuate after like I refreshed the page and stuff, and Prime Days going on and whatnot. So like it came out to just over $1,000. So I'm like, yeah, like if DIY trying to make an exact something similar will get you roughly in line with what Valve is making. So like they aren't completely, in a DIY perspective, they aren't completely ripping you off, because that is essentially what you could be getting in the market. But you could just get more powerful stuff if you don't want to do small form factor, which I think is really just the killing thing here, is just small form factor. Because if you get if you get anything above, like mini ITX, if micro ATX, full ATX, you're gonna get the same price point, and you're just gonna have like better selections of quality stuff. I mean, like, because even when I bought my mini ITX for my current build, like that thing cost me like $280, and it's like you can buy a cheaper ATX board than that. So like small form factor, I get it. It sucks, but I still think Valve should have just swallowed what they could. Like I said, not subsidize, just swallow the cost. Like not shave $200 off. That would have helped a whole lot more. With it, and in the long run, they could eat those costs. I mean, sure, $200 here and there, but people are gonna be spending money, and what? I feel like we're coming close to the next Steam sale. People are going to be spending money during that Steam sale.
So it's like going on, I think.
Oh, it's already going on?
Actually, maybe it's just some of the earlier stuff, but yeah.
But yeah, like they're not gonna lose them. Like in the long run, it's not gonna hurt them. Like they can afford that stuff. I don't really do not get why they didn't do it. I mean, granted, like you said, it's not gonna make or break them if this thing sells or doesn't. Personally, it might not be DOA, but I don't think it's gonna sell out. I think that I think scalpers are going to be a big part of this, and sure, there are people who are enthusiasts who get it. And whatnot, but I still don't think there are enough people out there that it would be in this is going to sell out territory. I mean, it might not. It's such a weird thing. I mean, because of course Valve didn't expect the Steam Deck to sell out like it did. Valve didn't expect the Steam controller to sell out like it did. To the point that like there's a backlog into 2027. But I think that's partially why they are doing the system that they have right now, is to sort of like prepare for that. But I don't think they really might even need to do that, because this thing is just so expensive. It's
Yeah.
not going to get people buying like they were the other amps. I mean, sure, spending $100 for a controller is a lot, but it's only $100. It's not, spending
And it's a great controller.
1,000. Yeah. It's a great controller. Whereas this is, it's an interesting product, but it's not an interesting product at that price point. Like that is just the killing factor, because it's interesting, it's cool, but it's just no. And one thing which I also do not like about this, which Valve has stated, which I can understand that they have no real say in this, is that it's really random if you're going to get this thing with dual channel memory or single channel memory, because you could either have one 16 gigabyte stick, or you could have two 8 gigabyte sticks. And obviously you're going to want to have the two 8 gigs so you can have dual channel instead of having single channel. And Valve says that it shouldn't impact gaming performance, and that if you're it's going to really impact you if you're doing like production stuff or anything like that. But if from another video I saw, if you're playing a game that's CPU intensive, that's going to hurt if you're having a single stick of RAM. So it's just random, and the fact that it's random, that you don't know if you're going to get two sticks or one, is just a pain. And I do think though that if you're spending on the higher end models, you should Valve should prioritize them getting 2 sticks of RAM if they're spending that much money. Not that I'm saying that I don't want anyone to have 2 sticks of RAM, but just no, don't do that. And Valve in an interview came out and said that they are essentially they really have no options at all with memory, and the person or the company that they work with getting memory essentially says comes to them every month and says, these are the prices of memory, take it or leave it. But if you say no, you will not hear from us again. So it's that definitely sucks. And I even also learned that this might not be the same exact boat that this company is in, but it's also the same boat that G-Skill is in. G-Skill makes RAM, system RAM, but they're also lower on the totem pole, so they're not able to get good deals and stuff that other companies would, like Corsair or Samsung or anything like that. And so I'm just this just hurts. It sucks all around, and I'm just you don't hate AI enough.
Right.
I'm just why? It's ridiculous. And I think Valve should have possibly just pushed this off some more. Either delay this or swallow the costs, because this is a lot to ask for. And I also hate this too, because while I was going through my outage without having a PC and whatnot, I was thinking to myself, man, it would be really great right now, just if I had a Steam machine. It's just sure, my PC's not working, but if I had a Steam machine right now, I could play some games on it. It wouldn't be as powerful, but I could enjoy some games right now. And I was like, man, Valve, when are you gonna reveal the Steam machine? They reveal it. I'm just this is awful.
Yeah.
So I'm just because I like the idea of the Steam machine. I think it's great. It's that small form factor of having that thing. You can have it in your living room. And again, you can have a larger PC and stuff. And I'm not knocking that at all, because I think that's the one thing that console fanboys will say is oh, you can't just hook up a PC to a TV. You can definitely do that. It's very simple.
Yeah.
But just for some cases, for my case in particular, at least for right now, I really do not have the space to have, something that is too large connected to my TV.
Mm-hmm.
And even with my PC being a mini ITX build, like the case is still larger than, it's way larger than the Steam machine, even though it's, like I said, mini ITX, where I'm like, I want something smaller essentially.
Yeah.
So it just stinks, and I'm like, I really do not want to get this thing, but I'm just like, also I'm like, the idea of, alright, cool, have this, take it with traveling and stuff, especially if, I mean, granted, they have my old Switch now, but it's like, alright, if my niece and nephew wanted to play some more of the games we've been playing that on my PC, I'd have this, bring it, and be like, alright, cool, here's my Steam machine, plug this in, play whatnot. But it's like, this price point is just not worth it at all. And I'm even wondering right now, because initially I thought maybe, just maybe, the Steam frame could be safe, because as you mentioned before, it's been using the LP DDX RAM, which I was like, alright, cool, that's fine, because I'm pretty sure that's like, those are the SODIMs and stuff like that. But then when I looked, now I have to go back to a full teardown, but as far as one clip I had seen, it looked like the Steam machine is using that same size, and I'm just like, no, even though on the spec sheet it does not say it's using that size. It looks like it sounds like it's using desktop size RAM. As far as what I saw in one clip, as far as with the RAM, it looked like it was using laptop memory, which I'm like, that's gonna be the same size as the frame possibly. And so I'm just like, that means we're probably gonna have a $1,000 frame possible. And I'm just like, no, please don't. It just stinks. And in light of everything, I really think that until this blows over, and I mean by that I mean the AI bubble, Valve should not even think about a Steam Deck 2. Because
agreed. Yeah, 100%.
Like, it is not the time to be doing anything like that right now.
Do the research, figure out what you have to work with, but don't even plan on releasing it until, or revealing it, let alone releasing it until after this RAM crisis is over and they can actually procure a bunch of RAM and everything that they're going to need to build it.
Yeah. Because it is just insane. I'm sorry, that is my long spiel, but that's everything I've had. Yeah.
The Steam frame, like, man, I want that to be a better price, because that's something that's definitely the thing I'm most interested in of those. But realistically speaking, if the LPDDR5 RAM is just as is also as expensive, and if that's what they're actually using for the Steam machine, it's kind of hopeless. I mean, like, I don't know what all components are included, and I can't remember if with the Index, the reason why it was $1,000 was if it was $1,000 for just the headset, or if it was $1,000 including the cameras. Because if it was $1,000 including the cameras, theoretically it could be cheaper for the Steam frame because that doesn't have the cameras. But at the same time, I'm not getting my hopes up. I'm just assuming it's going to be at least as expensive as the Index was, if not more. And I would love to find out that I'm wrong on that. I would love to find out that the Steam frame is like $800 or less, because that's like the very tip top of what I might be willing to spend on it. But even that, I don't think I would be spending. And yeah, I mean, one thing I will say is I am very glad that I did all my upgrades last year before any of this happened. I'm glad that I got my laptop early last year before any of this happened, because my laptop easily beats out the Steam machine. Even though it also has only 8 gigs of VRAM, it has 32 gigs of system RAM and 2 terabytes for the storage. And yeah, it was $1,100, but $1,100 for a pretty decent, fully portable laptop. I mean, compared to, you know, what the Steam or the Steam machine is costing, it's really not bad at all. And it's served me well for quite a few games. Like, there's only been, I think, 1 or 2 games where it just hasn't been up to snuff, but it's still significantly stronger than my Steam Deck, and it's been great for the stuff that I can't play on the Steam Deck. So, but yeah, we'll see what happens with the rest of this stuff. Either way, definitely no one should be buying the Steam machine at these prices. And hopefully something will change sooner rather than later. And whenever things do change, Valve will actually drop the prices, which I think that they are the most likely to do that versus the console manufacturers that just want to get every red cent they can out of people. But yeah, Valve is charging way too much for this, and it's not worth it right now. All right, anything else?
No, sir.
All right, well, let's start closing out for the night. So we'll get into our recommendations and dissuasions. Why don't you start us off?
All right, so my recommendation is going to be to back up your files, or more so just the data you have, especially on your phone, because you never know what might happen. And if there's some stuff on there that you just want to have, some like old memories and stuff, it's good to have that backed up and safely stored away, so that way if something happens, you do not lose anything that you would otherwise not want to have. And that also applies to computers as well, especially if you have some sort of incident with your computer. That way, you don't lose any precious data, or if you're have a lot of work that you're doing, you don't lose that either. So definitely make sure you regularly back up your stuff.
All right, agreed. So my recommendations, first of all, in Destiny 2, I'm going to recommend using the Tiku's Divination Exotic Bow, because it is a fantastic bow. I forgot how great it was until I booted up my Hunter and he had that equipped, and I was using it, and it was great for ad clear. Because basically the perk that it has is that when you hip fire, it automatically targets up to 3 enemies, and basically just like it does tracking arrows on them. But then after you hit them with those arrows, if you aim down sights, then when that arrow hits them, it explodes. So it's great for like if you have a mob of a bunch of enemies, you fire that, you light up 3 of them, and then shoot it at one, it explodes and it causes a chain reaction, and it's great. So it was very, very fun to use that again. Secondly, I am going to recommend the Steam controller, because while the Steam machine itself is not worth the cost, the Steam controller is amazing. I love this thing. It is so great. I don't like using it for Destiny 2 because unfortunately it just doesn't work well with Destiny 2, but it is great for basically everything else that I've used it on. So, and then my last recommendation is, instead of getting a Steam machine, either build your own PC or get a pre-built.
Yes.
All right, dissuasions.
So my first dissuasion is going to sort of piggyback off that idea, and that is, do not get a Steam machine. I can't recommend it at all for that price point, so do not buy one. It's just too much. Even all things considered, with pricing and stuff outside of just the memory stuff, it's, for what it is, it's just not worth that price point. And like you said, you're better off just building your own and you can just have regular type of PC or put Steam OS on there and make a Steam machine. The choice is yours, but just don't get this right now. And alternatively, I also would like to dissuade any type of fanboys from thinking that just because the Steam machine is more than it should be, do not think that means the PS5 is, or PS5 Pro especially, is where it should be either. Like, that is also not a steal as some of you believe it is. So everyone is getting price gouged right now.
Yep.
So
Everyone.
Don't think that this makes things better. It just means that everyone is in a bad situation. Others are just worse than some.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Agreed wholeheartedly. So, piggybacking off of what you said, I mean, of course, I fully agree with everything you said, but just not only not buying a Steam machine, but not buying consoles at current prices. You maybe could make the case for the Switch 2. I think, honestly, the Switch 2 is probably the best value of those. Even if I still don't like what Nintendo does from from a business practice standpoint, but especially the Xbox Series X and the PS5 Pro, even the base PS5, I just don't think they're worth it right now for what you get. I mean, if you're desperate for something, then okay, but I still wouldn't recommend the PS5 Pro. And you're really just not doing yourself any favors. Don't give in to that. Unless you are in a spot where you just don't have any other option, like you're still on last gen or something, like you're still using a PS4, what have you. If you're out of games to play, then okay, maybe I can understand that, even though I still think PC is a way better investment. But if you are not in that position, if you still have plenty of games to play, stick with what you have, because you're going to be much better off that way. Right now, with the way prices are, don't panic buy and buy something when it's already super expensive, because yes, in the short term, it's going to get more expensive. In the long term, eventually the bubble will burst and prices will go down. Now, is it going to ever be as affordable as it was before? I kind of doubt it. At least on the console side of things. I don't think that they're going to go back to actually dropping the prices every generation into the generation. But I do think overall the prices will be less than they are now in general, especially on the PC side. And hopefully we'll get back to the point where you can buy 64 gigs of RAM for $170 like I did last year, because that was like a massively good buy. I mean, like I was looking at the price of SSDs, because I bought 2 separate 4 terabyte SSDs. I bought one in, I want to say it was 2023, and then I bought one last year as well. Both of which were before any of the price increases. It was about $220 or something like that for a 4 terabyte. I checked the prices the other day. $985 for one of those.
Oh.
It's just like,
look at Warren Buffett over here.
I mean, I did look and see, like, micro SDs still seem to be pretty good on price. Like, they don't seem to have really gone up, but of course they're not fast storage either. You know, they're not the kind of things you want to use for gaming in general. They're fine for some games on Steam Deck, and for like the regular Switch and that sort of thing. But when you're wanting to play something that's more demanding, especially something that asks for an SSD, you're not going to want to use a micro SD card. And it's definitely not a good substitute for actual storage on a system. It's just not reliable enough either. So, yeah. Anyway, where can people find you?
They can find me on my channel. I am Xeracon. That's IAMXERACON. So youtube.com/@IamXeracon. No new content as of yet. still am planning on working on the ABCs of gaming, but that's something I'll have to sort of just start working on. Also around stuff this weekend might not be great because of just stuff with family I'm doing, so I'll see when I put out the next video. But that's what I do have in the works for that channel. And then I have my other channel, Justin's Bible Blog. That's at Justin's Bible Blog. No new content there either. Again, I have stuff planned, but managing that with my schedule is going to be one of the bigger things right now. But yes, and that is everything.
All right, excellent. Well, you can find me on my YouTube gaming channel at TheFrozenGamer87. I haven't put out anything in a while, but I am working on my downsides of PC gaming video. I have it recorded. Right now it's just a matter of getting it all edited, put together, and organized and all that. So we'll just see how long that takes. I'm not going to... Right now it's TBA at that point, but it's at least recorded. So that's the major thing. It's just a matter of sitting down, taking the time. What I'm probably going to end up doing is just working on it like an hour an evening, or half hour here and there until I get it done, because I'm sure once I get going it will start to move faster. It's just a matter of being like, okay, I'm going to sit down and start working on this. That hasn't happened much yet, because the one time that it did happen, then I had other stuff I had to do and never got back to it. So there's that. There's the YouTube and Rumble channel for the podcast. On YouTube, that's at the Orange Box Podcast. On Rumble, it's not a custom URL, but you can still find us there. The audio or the video version of the podcast goes live every Friday at 7 a.m. Central Time, barring technical issues or giant sniffs that I forget to remove and have to repost the episode, or things like that. But the video version, the main reason to watch that, if you're interested, is that you get to see clips from the games we've been playing. So especially if you hear about a game and you're like, okay, that sounds kind of interesting, maybe you want to take a look at it, see what the game looks like, there's your opportunity to do that. And then also, anytime we're talking about video game trailers and that sort of thing that came out, usually we will have those playing as well. So it's just an opportunity to see a lot of the different stuff we're talking about and have more of a visual representation instead of just an audio one. But speaking of audio, the audio-only version of the podcast goes live every Friday at 12 a.m. Central Time, barring technical issues, on all major audio podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and others. And that, I guess I already said, it goes live at 12 a.m. Central Time, barring technical issues. So, I don't have a question of the week this week. Actually, okay, here's my question of the week. I don't know if we'll get any responses, but put it out there anyway. Are any of you planning to buy a Steam machine even with these prices, or are you thinking of potentially just building your own PC or getting a pre-built? Are any of those options how it's looking for you, or are you just planning to get a console? Either way, I would like to hear from you. So there's that. But I believe that's everything. All right, last chance. Any final thoughts?
No, sir.
All right, Will. I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I am Zeracon. We are the Orange Box Podcast. And until next time, don't buy a Steam machine, or the PlayStation police will come and get you. Orange Box Podcast out.